When we decided to take that cruise, excitement was in the air. New York bid us farewell with its bright lights and the promise of adventure at sea. I, always the skeptic of the family, tried to shake off a strange sensation that lingered. The ship was magnificent, yet something in its vastness unsettled me. The walls seemed to whisper secrets, and the smell of damp would made my stomach churn. That my wife, Sarah, was radiant. She had dreamed of this cruise for years. Our children, Lucas and Clara, were eager, racing around exploring every corner. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It was as if the ship were watching us, waiting to reveal its mysteries. That on the first night, while everyone enjoyed the buffet, I decided to take a stroll. The corridors seemed to stretch endlessly, and the lights flickered strangely. I stumbled upon a group of people gathered, but as I approached, I noticed they were in silence, staring intently at a door. I couldn't hear what they were discussing, but a chill ran down my spine. When I turned to leave, I realized the group had vanished. Paranoia began to creep in. I tried to talk to Sarah about it, but she was so caught up in the fun that she merely smiled and told me to relax. "It's just the nerves of traveling," she said. But as the days passed, my unease only grew. I wanted to understand what was happening, but each attempt deepened my sense of isolation. Nights felt longer. The sound of waves crashing against the hull turned into a mournful lullaby. And in every corner I turned, I noticed something strange. Familiar faces disappearing, laughter echoing, but belonging to no one. A shadow seemed to follow me, and when I looked back, nothing was there. The void became my only companion. Hashtag things escalated when the first person vanished. It was a woman we knew from the table next to us at dinner. At first, everyone thought she had simply gotten lost, but when the night passed and no one found her, tension started to rise. The crew tried to maintain calm, but their anxious glances told another story. Something was amiss, and I couldn't ignore it. That night, as I tried to sleep, I heard a whisper. It was a call, a familiar voice that seemed to come from within the ship. I got out of bed, unable to resist. The voice guided me down dark corridors, and with each step, I felt myself drifting further from reality. The walls were damp, and the smell of mildew was strong. I didn't know if I was dreaming or if something was truly there. As the cruise continued, more passengers began to disappear. One by one, they added to the list of the missing, and the atmosphere on board grew thicker. Lucas and Clara started to get restless, asking when we would go home. I tried to remain calm, but the truth was I was beginning to lose control. The ship, once a promise of vacation, was now a prison. That on the third night, we found a diary in our cabin. It belonged to an old passenger who had made the same journey years before. Its pages were filled with accounts of voices, shadows, and disappearances. He spoke of a malevolent presence lurking on the ship, something that fed on fear and distrust. Reading it paralyzed me. Were we living the same fate? With each passing day, trust among the passengers dwindled. Suspicious glances and whispers became common. The crew seemed reluctant to share information. It was as if they knew more than they wanted to reveal. Fear was palpable, and the feeling of being watched intensified. I needed to find a way out, but where could I go in the vast sea? Hashtag that night, everything changed. The ship began to rock violently, as if caught in a storm, but the sky was clear. Panic set in. Clara screamed, and Lucas clung to me, his eyes filled with terror. The lights began to flicker, and in the chaos, I realized our cabin door had slammed shut, trapping us inside. The environment became claustrophobic. The diary we found now felt like a prophecy. The voices that were once whispers transformed into deafening screams. I struggled to understand what was happening, but the walls seemed to close in, and the air became suffocating. The feeling of despair was tangible. I knew something evil was lurking, waiting to devour us. When we finally managed to open the door, everything felt different. The corridor we knew had transformed into a maze. The lights were out, and silence reigned. What was once a party now felt like a graveyard. With every step, the feeling that we were being watched grew stronger. Shadowy figures moved in the darkness, and I knew we were not alone, that we confronted the first figure. It was a man, but his eyes were hollow, as if no soul resided within. He extended his hand, and a wave of cold coursed through my body. "You should have left," he whispered before vanishing into the darkness. My heart raced. What did he mean? What was happening to those who disappeared? With every moment, I realized reality was unraveling. The laughter that once echoed cheerfully now twisted into distorted cries of anguish. What was real? What was an illusion? I could no longer distinguish. The ship had become a living entity, and we were merely its prey, feeding its insatiable hunger for despair. Hashtag, finally, we reached what seemed to be the ship's control center. The screens were filled with images of the passengers, each wearing a look of despair. The truth unfolded before us. The ship was not merely a vessel. It was a trap. It fed on fear, pain, and loss. Those who disappeared were not just taken. Their essences were drained. Horror consumed my mind. What could I do? The only way to escape was to confront the ship itself. I knew I had to face my own fears, but the thought terrified me. The shadows danced around me, trying to pull me into the abyss. Sarah, Lucas, and Clara were with me, but what could save us if reality itself was becoming a nightmare? I focused on a happy memory, a sunny day in the park, laughing with my family. That image became my shield. I shouted, challenging the presence surrounding us, declaring that we would not be its victims. A profound silence followed, and the shadows hesitated. But it was fleeting. The darkness lunged at us with indescribable ferocity. When we finally found an exit, the sea was calm, but the experience had left deep marks. What we endured could not be forgotten. The ship receded, but the scars on our souls would remain forever. The sense that something had changed within us, that we would never be the same, was undeniable. Hashtag back in New York. Everything seemed normal, but I knew it wasn't true. The city lights shone, but the darkness of the cruise still lingered in my mind. What happened? Who were those who disappeared? And the ship? The questions haunted me. The horror had not ended. It merely blended into daily life. One night, while gazing at the horizon, a shadow passed. My heart raced. Was it him? The ship? Fear settled in again. The experience united us, but it also separated us. We couldn't speak of what we lived. It was a taboo that isolated us. Just an echo, a terrible memory that followed us. When we decided to take that cruise, excitement buzzed in the air. Los Angeles was fading behind us, replaced by the vast blue ocean that promised adventure. I, always the cautious one, felt an unease creeping in as we boarded the ship. The grandeur of the vessel was overwhelming, but something about the way it loomed against the horizon sent a shiver down my spine. I tried to brush it off. After all, we were here to have FU, and my friends, Jake, Mia, and Alex, were giddy with anticipation. They rushed from one deck to another, taking selfies and laughing. I should have joined them, but I lingered near the railings, staring into the depths of the sea. It felt like the water held secrets, dark and unfathomable. I shook my head, trying to dispel the ominous thoughts. This was supposed to be a getaway, not a horror story. That as night fell, the ship transformed. The vibrant atmosphere dimmed, and an unsettling silence enveloped the decks. We gathered for dinner, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The crew moved with an eerie precision, and their smiles seemed forced. Jake made a joke, but the laughter felt hollow against the backdrop of my growing anxiety. After dinner, I decided to explore. I wandered down empty corridors, the lights flickering above me. It was inexplicably quiet, and as I turned a corner, I stumbled upon a door marked "Crew Only." I hesitated, curiosity pulling me closer. Just as I reached for the handle, I heard footsteps approaching and quickly retreated, my heart racing. Was it just my imagination, or had I seen a shadow slip inside? Returning to my friends, I shared my unease, but they laughed it off. "You're just being paranoid," Mia said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I wanted to believe them, but the feeling lingered. That night, as I lay in my cabin, I couldn't shake the sensation that the ship was alive, a dark entity breathing around us, waiting for the right moment to strike. #, the next day, things took a turn for the worse. We woke up to find that one of the passengers had gone missing. It was a woman we had seen at breakfast, laughing with her friends. The mood shifted instantly. Whispers filled the ship, and the crew's demeanor changed. They were no longer friendly. They were tense and evasive. Determined to find out what happened, we began asking questions. The crew brushed us off, claiming she'd just gone ashore. But I could see the fear in their eyes. Something was wrong, and it felt like we were being drawn into a web of secrets. I suggested we stick together, but Jake insisted on exploring the ship further, convinced it would be fun. Reluctantly, we split up, and as I walked the deserted decks, I felt a chill in the air. I passed by a lounge where I heard muffled voices. Pressing my ear to the door, I caught snippets of conversation, words like disappear and it's happening again. My heart raced. I tried to push the door open, but it was locked. Panic surged through me, and I rushed back to find my friends. When I reunited with them, I could see the worry etched on their faces. "We need to leave this ship," I urged, but they dismissed my fears. "You're overreacting," Alex said, his voice steady. I felt isolated, the growing dread clawing at my insides. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that something sinister lurked just out of sight. That night, we gathered for dinner, but the atmosphere was different. The crew moved like shadows, their eyes darting nervously. I couldn't concentrate on the meal. My mind raced with images of the missing woman. After dinner, I suggested we check the deck, but Jake wanted to go to the club. "Just a little fun won't hurt," he said with a grin. I hesitated, but ultimately followed, hoping distraction would ease my growing anxiety. The music pulsed around us. I tried to let loose, but the unease remained. I glanced around, feeling eyes on me. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness. Panic erupted as people screamed and stumbled. In the chaos, I lost sight of my friends. The darkness felt alive, suffocating, and I realized we were not alone. When the lights finally returned, I found myself alone in a corner, heart pounding. I called out for my friends, but the noise of the crowd drowned my voice. I stumbled through the throng, searching for them. The air was thick with tension, and I felt a sense of impending doom. That's when I saw her, a fleeting figure in white, darting past me. It was the missing woman that I chased after her, weaving through the crowd, but she vanished into the shadows. Desperation drove me to the lower decks, where the atmosphere was stifling. The hallways twisted unnaturally, and I felt the walls closing in around me. I was drawn to a door at the end of the corridor, its surface worn and scarred. Hesitating, I pushed it open. Inside, the room was dark and empty, but the air buzzed with a strange energy. I noticed a series of photographs on the walls, images of past passengers, their faces twisted in fear. Below each photo was a date, and I recognized some of the names. They were all missing. My blood ran cold as I realized the truth. The ship fed on fear, consuming those who dared to roam its depths. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see my friends, but their expressions were empty, eyes glazed as if in a trance. "Help us," a voice whispered from the shadows, echoing my own fears. I backed away, heart racing as I realized they were not themselves. The ship was bending their minds, pulling them into its darkness. "Run!" I shouted, but they didn't respond. In a panic, I dashed back into the corridor, feeling the ship pulse around me. I raced through the twisting hallways, desperately trying to escape the grip of the malevolent force. The walls seemed to shift and close in, and I could hear whispers echoing my name. The ship was alive, and it was hungry. I finally burst onto the deck, gasping for air. The moon hung high, illuminating the chaos below. I spotted Jake and Mia, but they were surrounded by a group of passengers, all staring blankly at the ocean. I rushed over, shaking them, but they didn't respond. Their eyes were vacant, as if they had been taken. Panic surged within me as I realized I was utterly alone. I had to find a way to save them, to escape this nightmare. I remembered the crew's earlier conversations, something about a ritual to keep the ship alive. I needed to confront them. I sprinted towards the crew quarters, determination fueling my every step. When I reached the area, I found the crew gathered, chanting in hushed tones. The atmosphere crackled with dark energy, and I felt my resolve falter. But I couldn't turn back now. I stepped forward, demanding to know what was happening. The crew turned, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "You shouldn't have come here," one of them hissed, stepping closer. "This ship thrives on fear. You're all part of it now." My heart raced, and I felt the weight of their words. I had to break the spell to free my friends and myself. "No!" I shouted, channeling my fear into defiance. "We won't be your victims." The energy in the room shifted, and the crew members faltered. I seized the moment, pushing past them and racing back to my friends. I grabbed Jake and Mia, shaking them until they blinked, confusion flooding their eyes. "We have to leave," I urged, pulling them toward the lifeboats that as we reached the deck. The ship trembled, as if resisting our escape. The darkness clawed at us, whispering our worst fears. "Don't look back," I shouted, adrenaline surging as we approached the lifeboats. We climbed in and began to lower ourselves into the water, the ship's monstrous form looming above. The moment we hit the water, the whispers ceased. We paddled away, the darkness receding behind us. But I knew the scars of that night would never fade. The ship would continue to haunt our dreams, a reminder of the terror we faced. Hashtag back in Los Angeles. Everything felt different. The sun shone brightly, but the memories of the cruise lingered, dark and heavy. We tried to resume our lives, but the shadows of that night clung to us. I could hear Jake and Mia discussing the event, but their laughter felt forced, as if they were trying to erase the horror point one night. While staring at the ocean, I saw a familiar silhouette on the horizon. My heart raced. Was it the ship? The memories flooded back, and I felt that familiar chill. I turned away, determined to leave the past behind. But I knew the darkness would always be a part of me. Thank you for joining us on this journey. What we experienced serves as a reminder that true terror can hide in the most unexpected places. Share your own fears or experiences. Perhaps we can find solace in knowing we're not alone in facing the darkness. The echoes of that nightmare will forever linger, waiting for the next unwitting soul to embark on a journey into the unknown.